God'll get you for that one.
Maude is owned by Shout Factory.
God'll Get You for That, Walter, is produced for entertainment purposes only.
Sponsored in part by Findley's Friendly Appliances. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter.
But the only one who gets Walter in this episode is Maude and the lawyers, probably.
Maude and the lawyers, no,
I
yeah.
would say.
No, it's true.
Yes.
Welcome to God'll Get You for That, Walter, a podcast where we discuss the 1970s hit sitcom, Maude. And we are your hosts, Catt and Toni Homeperm.
Are we really?
Last I checked.
Okay.
Hand me my driver's license. You know, at one point I was actually thinking of having my name changed.
Really?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. To what?
To Tomcat.
Oh.
Legally. No, I was going to legally change it to B. Arthur. So today we are going over the second part of a three-parter.
Mm-hmm.
So it started with The Split, and now this is called Consenting Adults.
Consenting Adults.
This is Season 4, Episode 2, our Episode 73.
Mm-hmm.
It originally aired September 15th, 1975.
The swinging 70s.
And we have guest stars. We have Richard Dicehart as Mason Everhart. We have Gene Blakely as John Vogelson. We have Candace Rielson, or Rialson, as Jenny. And we have Matthew Stimmy Beard.
Stymie.
Matthew Stymie Beard as Stymie.
Who was Stymie in the old
Little Rascals.
Yes.
And Our Gang.
Yes. He was, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess, I don't know if Stymie is considered, some of the other names are, you know,
indicative of
very,
personality.
Well, not just that. They were they were
problematic.
They were problematic, you know.
Yeah, problematic.
You know, buckwheat.
Yes, buckwheat.
And, you know, the like the names like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I don't think Stymie, I mean, I don't know if that would be considered problematic.
Well, we can look it up because we have Google.
We have Google.
We have Google.
You know, it's amazing. Everyone had said that, you know, originally, the World Wide Web would be this, you know, information superhighway. And it seems most of the information on the World Wide Web is actually inaccurate and false. So.
Well, this is from the Oxford Language Dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
And stymie is to prevent or hinder the progress of.
Right. Yes, as
I would imagine that's a problematic name.
Yes, yes. Although his name was, bless you.
Thank you.
Now you've
caught it.
Anyway, the actor's name again was
Matthew Stymie Beard.
Okay, so Stymie had nothing to do with anything to do with his name. So,
well, I mean, again, it was to prevent or hinder the progress of.
So,
that's the.
Are we classifying it as problematic?
I would classify it as
problematic. There you go.
I would classify it as
there problematic. You go. Problematic. Anywho, he was in the Little Rascals.
He was in the Little Rascals. Yes.
He was the little African American child who wore the bowler hat.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to.
If you remember,
I don't think you can even see Little Rascals any
on Turner Classic Movies.
Do they have them?
They will play.
Do.
They'll play Our Gang. They'll play Little Rascals. They'll play. They'll play the Street Gang from the 40s that had the Humphrey Bogarts.
Okay.
And oh God, I can't remember the name of them, but I know my mother was a big fan of the Little Rascals and Our Gang, and also that Street Gang whose name completely and totally escapes me.
Oh, the something kids.
Yeah, the Bayou Boys, not Bayou
the
Boys. The Bowery Boys.
The Bowery Boys. Yes, I remember them. The thing I remember most about Little Rascals was when Alfalfa did drag.
Well, of course, we all remember when Alfalfa did drag. That was timeless.
That was my favorite.
That was timeless. Well, I mean, not for anything, because
and isn't it crazy? It didn't like just turn an entire generation gay.
Nope. Do you want to know who turned me gay? Cary Grant.
Really? Cary Grant.
Well, I mean, when I initially found out who Mae West was and watched a lot of her movies, I would look at Cary Grant and I'm like, wow, that is a very attractive man. Cary Grant and Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly was the body on that man.
For me, it was, I think I've mentioned it before, Patrick Duffy is the man from Atlantis.
As the man from Atlantis.
In his little yellow Speedo.
Little yellow Speedo.
Yeah, I was like, oh, gay.
Yep.
Gay. Gay. I can still remember my mother. Why are you sitting so close to the television?
He wanted to make sure. Wanted to make absolutely sure.
Because I wanted to see as much of that little yellow
As
Speedo
much of
as
the little yellow
possible.
Speedo as possible.
And I did.
And then they released the Sears catalog, and you would take the underwear
yes.
section.
Yes. Yes, that was my porn.
I remember those days.
Ah, yes. I remember it well.
I remember it just like it was 20 or 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, this episode was directed, of course, by Hal Cooper and written by Norman Lear and also two women, Carol Miller and Pamela Chase.
Interesting.
Which, I'm always supportive of women in the workforce. Which it's interesting because that does get brought up at some point during the course of the episode.
Yes, very true.
So, first of all, what'd you think of the episode?
It was good. I'm not like certainly not one of the funniest.
No.
It had a lot of serious overtones to this episode.
Yes.
But well done.
The funny moments I think the funny moments predominantly came from
Vivian
and Arthur.
Yeah. Very true.
So the episode opens with we're in a hotel.
No, it was a swinging singles
apartment
complex. Yes, swinging singles.
Which that I don't know if many of those singles apartments exist these days.
Oh, not today.
Not today, but back then it was a thing.
It was like the shag carpet.
Yeah.
And the beaded curtains.
The beaded curtains.
And all that sort of thing. Very gaudy.
Looking like something
orange,
straight out of I Dream of
tones,
Jeannie's.
Orange and avocado and harvest gold.
And purples. And greens.
Yeah.
And mixing all the colors together.
Yes.
Because nothing made sense in these things.
No.
So the episode opens with Arthur and Vivian sort of moving Maude along to
this corridor. Yes,
to go to Walter's apartment, Walter's apartment, and have it out with him for once and for all.
Right.
Because apparently it's been 10 days. We find out it's been 10 days since Maude had last seen Walter. Obviously from last week's episode where he stormed out of the house.
Yes. So he's now living in the swinging singles.
Yep.
Apartment.
So Vivian's like, "Don't be a chicken," and Maude says, "Well, fine. Just don't pass me past Colonel Sanders."
Colonel Sanders. If you don't know who Colonel Sanders is, he's the face of KFC.
The face of KFC. So, he's dead now.
Yeah, been dead a long time.
He's been dead a while.
Yeah.
So,
and Maude then is like, I can't.
Yeah, she was. It was very. Maude is not the type of person to humble herself.
No. Yes.
But in this instance, she says, "I'm here to humble myself and beg him to come home."
But she doesn't want him to know.
She doesn't want him to know that she's
come to humble
herself and beg him to come home. So at that point, I think Vivian is like having it out with Arthur because Arthur said something to the effect of, "Maude, just deal with it, open up, and just let bygones be bygones." So Vivian's like, "No, this is an opportunity for her to reach her own challenges, reach some new goals. When you're as old as Maude is," and Maude screams.
It's her last chance.
It's her last chance.
As old as she is.
Which, I mean, it's interesting because at that point, Maude was only in her late 40s.
Right.
Maude was, I think, 48 or 49. Because I think in the following, in season 5, I think she turns 50. So they tried to keep, like, all things considered, for a 70s sitcom, they tried to keep things as consistent and as not as inconsistent as the Golden Girls or something to that effect.
Or some of the other ones, yes.
Now, I don't know if there was a sitcom Bible or if there was something that they could, like, refer to for all of this information, but that is the norm for sitcoms today.
Yeah.
Where they sort of have this book of consistencies.
Yeah. Which is, it's funny when you think about it, because they were very consistent on Maude. But then with Golden Girls, they were so inconsistent.
So many inconsistencies.
B. Arthur didn't seem to have a problem with it.
Nope.
No.
So it's very interesting. I think at that point it was the writer's game. It wasn't like, because with Maude it was very collaborative. Like Norman Lear and Maude would have conversations about where the scene should go. I do feel like that B. Arthur had more of a hand in Maude than she did in Golden Girls.
Yeah, because Maude, she was the star. Golden Girls, it was a group.
It was a group
effort.
It was a group effort from everyone involved.
So she probably felt like, she was just part of the mix.
Yep.
And they were paying her well, so I guess.
Listen, she's still making money.
So
She's
staying anyway.
She is still making money to this day.
Yes, don't let her find out about you.
I couldn't. I couldn't if I wanted to. We'll get out the Ouija board. We'll try and have a conversation with her. So Vivian finally says to Maude, "You just have to, for me, please go knock on that door and tell Walter, I love you. Please accept me the way I am." So Maude knocks on the door and she looks away and the camera focuses on her and she says, "I love you. Please accept me the way I am." And the camera turns and it's Stymie.
It's Stymie, yes. Grown-up Stymie.
Grown-up Stymie, but
That's
Stymie
still
is...
Stymie.
He is short, he
Yes.
is bald, and he is still black.
And he's still black.
And the reason why I bring that up is
Yes.
because he
Only
says,
because-
"You ain't young enough, you ain't short enough, and you ain't dark enough." And he slams the door in her face. And the audience
Yes, they went crazy.
loses it.
They went nuts.
Well, I mean, that was also the thing that you would see. You would see older celebrities just sort of pop up periodically in sitcoms.
Very laughing. I
Very,
don't know if you
very
remember laughing.
Of course I remember laughing.
I don't know if
Joanne
you-
Worley is
Yes.
part of my personality.
That's true. She's part of your genetic makeup.
Part of my genetic makeup.
If we ever do like an Ancestry 23 on you, I see there's part Joanne Worley, part Elaine Stritch. Majority is B. Arthur.
It's not inaccurate.
A small amount of Pat Carroll.
Small amount of Pat Carroll. Just the teeniest amount. Oh my goodness gracious! So yes,
that would be
I
fun.
love Joanne Worley. I love Ruth Buzzy. I'm trying to think of who else was on.
Laughing.
Lily Tomlin,
Lily Tomlin.
obviously.
Yes.
Just there was so many
Great
brilliant female comedians.
Yes.
So many brilliant comedians on that. Obviously, Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn.
I do wish that they would sort of bring that back because I cannot remember anything inherently problematic, with the exception of, oh God, why can't I think of the actor's name? But he was the one that played the German.
Was that Harvey Korman?
I think it was Harvey Korman.
Or Artie Johnson?
That one.
Artie Johnson.
Artie Johnson. Saying, very interesting but stupid.
Yes.
Like with the hat on.
Yes.
That I think would probably be the only thing that I could see as problematic.
Yeah.
Because I don't think of anything else other than that. I also remember they tried to do something similar. You know how Laugh-In had the party scenes?
Yes.
And like it would be like dancey, then they'd stop, and then one of the actors would say something incredibly stupid.
Right.
They tried to do something similar with Lady Bunny, B. Arthur, Elvira, and I'm trying to remember like other actors like personalities of note. And I'm sure you could find it on YouTube. But it's always interesting when they try to bring back something from the 60s or from the 50s. But there's always that
it doesn't really translate
it
well.
It doesn't really translate all that well.
True.
But I also, speaking of Rowan and Martin, there was a Netflix special where they brought it back, sort of, and I think it was hosted by Bill Maher and Jimmy Kimmel. I could be wrong on that one, but they tried to sort of resurrect it as a way to. I don't know if it was like an anniversary special or what have you, but I watched it and I was like, okay, this is enjoyable. And then like the pot jokes came in and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So potpourri for you. It exists.
Potpourri.
It exists.
It's
it
out
exists
there.
somewhere. So Stymie closes the door in Maude's
Slams
face.
it on her face.
And Maude has this really funny bit where she looks at Arthur and Vivian, looks back at the door, holds for 2 seconds, looks back at Vivian and Walter, looks back to the door, holds for 2 seconds, and looks back to Vivian and Walter. It was a really wonderful, like, triple take that I thoroughly enjoyed, and the audience was loving it.
Yes.
So Maude turns to Vivian and Walter and says, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." So
Vivian then points out that, she was at the wrong apartment, which...
yes.
No doubt about that.
Obviously, no doubt
Thank
about
you,
that.
Vivian.
Thank you, Vivian, for pointing out the
Yes.
obvious. So, I have written here swinging singles,
I think
Boys Town for middle-aged boys.
Yes, and there was something like
Arthur said something of heck of a first year, but he says like
they were saying how miserable Walter is.
Yeah.
All that.
Just pointing out how bad Walter's first year probably is going to be.
Yeah. No.
Or how
Arthur's
good.
saying how he's been reading about how when the men who this happens to, that they move out after the marriage, and that their health deteriorates, and they're all these bad things start happening to them.
Yeah.
After the first year.
After the first year, I was going to say I know how bad the first year is going to be.
Yeah.
And at that point, Maude's like, "This is Boys Town to middle-aged boys."
Yes.
And, I don't see any swinging singles around. And at that point,
Yes.
these two
very young girls.
very young, very pretty women round the corner, and they're giggling, and
Yes.
they're carrying on. And it looks like they're waiting right outside of Walter's door. And Maude just stands there in her, patrician attire saying, "Hi, fellas."
Hi, fellas. And they inform her that they're just there to visit
Wally Findlay.
Wally Findlay.
And,
Yes.
Maude's like, "Wally?"
Wally.
And then at that point they say, "Oh, do you know Wally Baby?"
Wally Baby.
Which just, it makes me cringe. It does. It makes me cringe. And, Maude's like, oh, Wally Baby. No, I'm his wife.
Just his wife.
I hope that doesn't make you feel embarrassed or shy or cheap. So at that point, they're like, well, just let him know that Jenny is going to be waiting at the...
She reserved a tennis court
for them. A tennis court for
them.
And
then the Maude's remarks just completely went...
completely over her
right
head.
over the head.
Right over the head.
Yes.
So they go to leave, and Maude turns to look at them, and then she turns to Vivian and Arthur and says, "How quickly one forgets how firm thighs can really be."
That's right. That scene sort of reminded me of that very early Golden Girls episode when Dorothy is saying how she was talking with these young
group of girls in their 20s.
And
at that age, you don't even have to be pretty, and you're pretty.
Right. And when
she gets into the car, and she almost has a heart attack. This old woman was in the mirror. I didn't recognize her.
And of course, Rose is like, Who was she?
Who was she?
Oh, by the way.
Uh-oh.
So your blast from the past of you doing, like, all the Golden Girls voices?
Oh, no.
There are three characters you should never do. One is Rose, one is Blanche, and the third, most important, is Sophia. Don't ever do that again.
I'm screaming. I am hollering. No. So, to those who don't know, I posted, this was at like the height of the pandemic, and I think Betty White was nearing her 100th birthday or had just passed, or one of the two. And, someone had written, I think it was Golden Girls during the pandemic or Golden Girls pandemic on Instagram. They had written these scripts about what the girls would do during the pandemic. And so many people tagged me in it. Mm-hmm. So many people tagged me in it. So I got the bright idea, because at that point, I had this little studio for myself.
Couldn't go out.
Couldn't do anything. So I literally read the script as the girls.
Right.
But what I did was I manipulated it so that it would have the laugh track from an episode. It would have stills from the episode.
Right.
And I did all of
The voices.
The voices. And then my mother haplessly found it and is now lambasting me live on air.
Yes. Because it was like, every time, the Dorothy part came on, I'm like, yes. And then when the other parts came on, I was like, no! No, stop! For the love of God, stop!
So, yeah, that was...
It was just so weird, because the Dorothy is perfect, and then the other parts are just like... well, they're all Dorothy.
They're all still Dorothy. They are all still Dorothy. Yeah.
But where can they find that if they really want?
They can find that on my TikTok and on my Instagram.
TikTok and Instagram. There
on
you
my TikTok and my Instagram. I think I also have it on my YouTube, actually.
Well, I saw it on your Facebook.
That was where I initially... so I shared it first on YouTube and Instagram, and then I also shared it to Facebook. And it's so weird sharing the same thing to 3 different types of social media.
But you have different audiences.
Exactly. Not everybody's going to see it.
Yeah.
So... yeah, it was just one of those things. Yeah. And I was so self-important. I'm like, it's going to rocket me to stardom. And now here we are.
Here we are.
Not at stardom.
In the basement.
In my basement, in my studio, in the basement of my house.
There you have it, pussycat.
Thank you, Mom. You just love pouring salt on that wound.
It tickles me.
Of course. Of course it does.
So Jenny reserved the tennis court for Wally Baby with her firm thighs.
Yes, with her very firm thighs.
So
what do I have here? Oh, yes. So at that point, Vivian and Arthur are carousing around Maude and are just like, we're going to be with you through thick and thin.
Yes. And Vivian rings the doorbell of the right door.
Vivian rings the doorbell of Walter's apartment. And Walter opens the door. And Walter's agog.
Yeah.
At first, because again, he hasn't seen Maude in 10 days.
Right.
And has there ever been a point in time when you haven't seen Frank for 10 days?
No.
Well,
10 days? No. Even when I was in the hospital, he came.
He still came to visit, of course.
Day. I mean, I had like a couple, there was like a couple trips when the one place that I was working where I had to go out of town.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was more than 3 or 4 days, something like that.
10
days? No.
So for Maude and Walter, it was obviously a lot.
Yes.
Because Maude's looking at her, and Maude was in this very...
beautiful orange, caftan-y kind of, not caftan-y. It was almost like a Nehru jacket, kind of a
Nehru jacket, shrugs situation over her traditional vest, pantsuit situation.
It was very classy,
very elegant. I enjoyed that, and I have so much orange material I could very easily recreate that if I wanted to. So, at that point, Vivian and Arthur are just like, well, it looks like you two are getting on. We'll check on you guys in an hour, or however long it was.
Yes.
And, Maude at that point is just haplessly standing there saying, thick just left with thin.
Yes. So Walter invites her into his bachelor pad.
And it's exactly what you would expect.
It is.
It's not the greatest.
It's like the 70s, just vomited
up
all
everywhere.
Everywhere. It was like every bad design thing about
from the 70s was in that apartment.
Pillows,
giant pillows on the floor. Glass table with a naked statue underneath it
held it up.
That held it up. What else? Wasn't there a bird cage?
Was there? I don't remember. I mean, it was just...
There was a chaise lounge. There was the bed. It was just... And every color you can think of.
Every color of the rainbow.
Every color
but not put together right.
But not put together correctly.
No.
It was, again, very, very 70s.
Yes.
So... Maude is looking around, and the audience, again, is losing it because obviously B. Arthur has those beautiful facial expressions. And she turns to Walter and just nods and says, Tasteful.
So then she's catching him up. Apparently the cleaner has bursitis.
The cleaner's bursitis is acting up.
The meter man has
pink eye. Everyone's doing fine. Walter, Carol, Philip, Mrs. Naugatuck, they're all fine. And, as Maude's going on, she stops herself and says, why do I get the feeling Omar Sharif is about to come out of the bathroom?
That's right. So also she said she was, did she say it or did Walter mention it about that? She's picking up support for her campaign. And...
Yeah. I think that was Maude who said it. No, Walter was the one that initiated saying, I saw you were picking up steam. And I think it was the Tuckahoe Tribune or the
something
Tuckahoe,
like that,
just
yes.
something to that effect.
Yes.
And, Maude is now, she's explaining everything and stomping over all of these pillows on the floor, which if you're familiar, you've seen her doing that exact thing in the opening to the show, Maude. Her stomping on all those pillows. And again, it was very funny. And, I always wished for Golden Girls that B would do more physical comedy. Because in Maude, it's obviously the 70s, and obviously B. Arthur was significantly younger. Not by that much, but she was younger in Maude. So she was able to do a lot more physical comedy in Maude than I ever saw her do in Golden Girls. But you've also mentioned, what is physical comedy? She has all of those beautiful facial expressions. That's the comedy.
I know.
She didn't even.
She didn't even need to do anything.
She didn't even need to do. All she had to do was give a stare, and that, the audience erupted with laughter.
How many times in Golden Girls did we see that? One of the other girls makes a remark, and she's just
she throws a spoon, or she throws her hands up, or I love when B. Arthur would always cross her eyes. For some reason, it always tickled the hell out of me. I remember her doing it when she did it twice in Golden Girls. I remember distinctly. She did it once with the older couple that was trying to get Sophia to date. And,
Mr. and Mrs. Caligula.
Yes, exactly, Mr. and Mrs. Caligula. So they go to leave, and they're like, oh, are you sure you're going to consider our proposal? And, Dorothy's like, of course we could. How could we not? And she closes the door and turns towards Sophia with her eyes crossed. What a pair of loons! And the first time I saw that, I was peeing myself. I was laughing so hard. And the other time was when Rose was going over the Goofy head.
The Goofy head.
She dated Goofy at the Disney parks.
Oh, that's right.
And Rose was, I think Dorothy or Blanche asked, do you remember? No, it was Dorothy who asked Rose, do you remember why the passion faded? And Rose says, he took off the Goofy head. And Dorothy's like, you see, that wasn't so bad. He took off the Goofy head. And she turns to Blanche and crosses her eyes. And again, it's just, it amuses the heck out of me. That's the type of comedy I would like to produce.
There you go. And there you have it. Pussy.
And there you have it, kids.
So Walter informs her that the apartment came furnished.
And Maude says, from where? The house of porn?
First time I ever, I think, heard the word porn in a sitcom.
Yeah. But it's real.
Yeah.
I also heard while I heard pornography when from The Facts of Life, where Edna Garrett was looking at Tootie taking her modeling career off, and the photographer was trying to get Tootie in various stages of undress.
Yes.
And she had
telling her to make love to the camera.
Exactly. And she stops and says, what you're doing is child pornography. And of course, Charlotte Ray and her ever so fascinating way of talking. But yeah, there was that episode. There was also the episode of Designing Women, where there was, porn on the newsstands. And there was that whole episode where Julia was just like, I don't know if Julia was pro or against the newsstand selling that kind of literature.
Right.
But it's always interesting when pornography gets brought up in sitcoms because it's either going to land or it's not. Yeah. So fortunately for this one, it landed.
Yeah. The thing is, it's like the 70s is when you started seeing adult theaters actually popping up in areas.
Yep.
Up until that point, like, you know, the only way you could see pornography was if you could get like a one of those like 8mm film reels or something like that. And maybe they would have it like at a what they call a stag party / bachelor party. You know, so.
It's amazing the things that have gotten a rise out of men over the centuries.
I know. But yeah, the 70s is when, you know, you started seeing those like adult theaters.
Triple X, you know, and they'd have those midnight showings of dirty movies.
Yes. And then, of course, once the 80s came and you could get it on VHS, the porn industry
blew up.
Really exploded.
Blew up.
Really exploded. And now it's just right on your phone.
No, it's just right on your phone.
It's right on your phone.
Right from the convenience of your own couch.
Yes.
So you don't have to go to those theaters.
I saw I forget what show it was. They were like, it was supposed to be like they were in the future, and they were looking like at an old computer, and they said, "Oh yes, this was a device that people in the 21st century use to view pornography."
Yes, it's not inaccurate. Well, I mean, you've seen Avenue Q, The Internet is for Porn.
I've never seen that.
Oh, it's such a good musical.
Never
It's
seen
so
it.
silly and so wonderful. But the song The Internet is for Porn was yeah.
There you have
It's a good song to listen to.
So much for the great intents for the World Wide Web to be this.
I mean, we found out what stymie
information
meant.
superhighway, yes.
We found out what stymie meant.
I know, right?
So it's good for words.
Cuts
for
both
words.
ways, pussycat.
Not the sword cuts both ways.
Sword cuts both ways.
The sword cuts both ways. So moving right along.
Maude's been telling Walter she's been worried about him.
Yeah, I literally have in quotations. It's the "I understand" scene.
The understanding scene,
Where-
yes, they're both understanding.
Yes, they're both understanding, and Walter and Maude are like, "I understand this, that, and the third," and Walter's like, "No, I understand that you understand."
Right.
And, the sort of the denial about being in
Yes,
denial
yes.
bit.
I
Which,
understand that you understand that I understand
Exactly.
that you understand. It basically just a whole back and forth.
yes, and then Walter finally says, "You're like a little girl who wants two things when she knows she can only have one."
That's right. A marriage in A marriage in Albany, or no? A career in Albany.
A career in Albany and a marriage in
Tuckahoe.
Tuckahoe can't work.
Right.
So Walter is seemingly made up his mind. He can't have it. He can't have it where she is the weekend wife.
Right.
And then Maude has this brilliant monologue where she mentions the first word that you learn to conjugate in a love language or any language is to be. And Walter, being witty, says, "Well, that's not what I learned. The first word I learned how to speak was voulez-vous coucher
In
avec
French.
moi?"
Yes.
In
When
French.
he was learning French. Voulez-vous. Yes. And in Spanish, it was mi casa, su casa.
And, Maude's like, "Oh, you're impossible." And you're not, almost like he wasn't listening or not like paying attention to what she was doing. I have, the next thing I have written down is Walter voulez-vous and Walter saying oui monsieur. But I know that there was a point where Walter was like trying to have a conversation with Maude about something. And then I also have written down absorbing Junior.
Well, Maude says she missed she hated waking up at night and he's not there. She missed the things that she missed about him. One of them being the smell of his absorbing Junior.
What is absorbing Junior for the audience?
Absorbing Junior was kind of like Bengay, something like that. I think it had like it had like a sort of like a cloth. It was like I don't remember if it was like a roller or if it was like a cloth kind of top that you sort of like dab stuff out of, and it was like a liniment, I guess. So, but it didn't like stay on your skin like greasy like Bengay. It gets
absorbed into the skin.
With sense absorbing Junior.
That's sense absorbing Junior.
So little behind the ear.
Thank you.
Bengay.
What are you trying to do? Pickle yourself so you live to be 100?
One can only hope. Pussycat.
I would love it.
For your sake.
For my sake is right.
If only for your sake.
So they're now lying on the bed.
Yes,
and
Walter's saying, "Let's never stay apart."
Yep.
And they're kissing.
Yep.
And he goes.
He puts his foot in it.
Puts his foot in his mouth.
And he says,
how a real
woman belongs with her husband.
With her husband, making a home, not
that's
politics.
No place, not politics. That's no place for a woman.
Yeah,
that's
point,
men's business.
Maude comes up with another great French expression.
She says, there's also that other French expression. And what was it? Bon voyage.
And she
throws him off.
Pushes him off the bed.
So Walter gets up, he dusts himself off, and he says, "We can't keep doing this."
He said, "This is never going to work. We have to stop kidding ourselves."
And he mentions the D word.
Yes.
He says divorce. I'm talking divorce.
Yes.
So they have this interesting back and forth where Maude comes back and says, "I'd rather have a mix master."
Yes.
Instead of a divorce.
And
they have this really interesting bit where Walter says, "We can't do this because you'll end up hating me, I'll end up hating you, and it just wouldn't work."
Yes.
So Maude says, "Hate me and we'll keep the marriage together."
Just like everybody else.
Everybody else.
Yes. And this is the thing, this time period, this is when divorce really
started picking up.
A very more acceptable, more of an everyday kind of a thing in everyday American society. Until this point,
let's think about it for 2 seconds. Let's dissect this.
Mm-hmm.
In the 70s, women finally started to become liberated.
Yes.
They were able to get their own checking accounts, their own credit cards. They didn't need a man to financially support them.
Right.
So marriage sort of became unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, it was always, you'll meet a nice man.
Yes.
The man will take care of you, this, that, and the third. And, I look at Cher and the conversation that she had with her mother. And, her mother had said, "Cher, why don't you meet a rich husband?" And Cher said, "Mom, I am a rich husband." So, it was really one of those interesting things where it started picking up in the 70s because women did not need to be financially supported because they were able to financially support themselves.
Right. And also women were realizing that they didn't need to stay in an unhappy marriage.
That's right.
So I remember there was we started seeing TV shows like Barbara Walters did Not for Women Only was her big morning daytime show where she specifically was talking about women's issues, and that's when they started talking very openly about things like women's sexuality and sexual harassment in the workplace and just bringing all these issues to light that up until then it was don't talk about that.
You never talked about it.
And so all of these things were coming out into the open.
Yep. And now here we are. Everything is sort of regressing, isn't it?
Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk? But Republicans love to get divorced.
They do. They also love to have gay sex.
They love to get divorced. They love to have gay sex.
And they love to dress and drag.
Yes, they do. Strangely enough, for as much as their protestations about it. Yeah. Good times.
Any hoozle beans.
Anywho, back to the episode. So they're coming to this realization that it just the best thing to do is to
get a divorce. So at that point, Maude's like, "I'm not going to go through this like I did with the other ones. I want this to be sensible.
Yes.
I want no resentment, no rancor.
Not going to cry like she did with Chester,
Albert, Barney." And Walter stops and says, "Barney died." And Maude says, "I know. He was the only one who knew how to end a relationship."
And, so they're talking about, a final separation.
Yep.
They're going to be sensible, no tears,
Yep.
no anger. I have, like Walter said, like, nobody's right, nobody's wrong.
Yep.
And I think it's at that point Arthur and Vivian come back.
They start, like, holding on to each other. They're hugging, they're embracing. And then Arthur and Vivian storm into, because of course they do.
Because of course they do.
Good
thing they hadn't stormed in when they were on the bed.
Yeah, when they were on the bed. Otherwise, they would have just not.
Yeah.
They would have just stayed away. But, like Vivian is seeing them like hugging, and she says, "Oh, look at these two lovebirds."
And of course, Arthur is commending himself.
Of course he is.
That
I got them back together.
He got them back together. He knew it would work.
So Maude turns to Arthur and says, "We're getting a divorce." And Arthur turns to Vivian and goes, "They're lying. I brought them back together."
Yeah.
And I think at that point, Walter.
I think Vivian accuses Arthur. I think she tells him that it's all his fault.
Yep,
right?
she starts hitting him on the shoulder, saying, "This is all your fault."
Right.
She called him like some names that I can't remember.
They're arguing, and then Maude starts crying.
Yep, and
even more.
And Walter's like, "Well, what's wrong?" And Maude says, "They remind me of how happy we were when we were married." So
we break
for commercial, and then when we come back,
we're back at the Findlay residence.
Yep.
And Vivian is looking at a photo album and crying, as Vivian,
so often does.
now. Vivian, this is Vivian 2.0.
This is Vivian 2.0.
Vivian
this
1.0.
This is Arthur's wife.
Yeah.
This is Arthur's wife. This isn't
Vivian.
the single Vivian that was married to Chuck.
Yes, she wouldn't have been crying.
Let me rephrase that. This isn't the Vivian that was married to Chuck.
Yes. That Vivian, I don't think, would have cried at looking at the
I don't think so either.
Photo album. But Vivian 2.0
Vivian 2.0 does. So, crying over the photo album. And I will say this. Rue McClanahan is another great physical comedian.
Yes.
She does this beautiful bit where she just overacts so much to the point where it has to be funny. Especially when she's like doing the crying or doing the heavy sobbing, because it worked for the character.
Yeah,
and it worked for the laugh.
I loved one of her I think probably one of her most physical things she did in Golden Girls was when she had stayed up for like days and had written her like
the Sick and Tired Part 1 and 2,
and she's like looking at the yolks.
Yep. She had those gorgeous blue eyes, and there was that one, and there was also the scene where she, again, used those very wide eyes of hers, and she shot daggers at Sonny Bono, and she said it very subtly, but it was one of the funniest lines in the episode where she goes, "Sonny Bono, get off
my lanai."
So, she's another one who's a brilliant physical comedian.
Yes.
I think when we get to it, I think it's the end of season 4 or the end of season 5 where we find out that Maude has a bipolar disorder. And it was the episode where, Fonda, where she's trying to get Henry Fonda nominated for president. And there was this beautiful moment for Rue when she goes, "Hank, here!" And it's almost like she has this inward orgasm. And I watched it and I just burst out laughing. So, yes, Vivian's crying hysterically.
Crying over the photos.
And I think at that point, Maude holds up.
And she's saying it's her entire life with Walter.
With Walter.
Yeah.
She holds up a picture. No, she doesn't hold up a picture. She said, like, they have this conversation where it's like property settlement, no cohabitation for a year.
Yes.
And Vivian's like, cohabitation? And Maude says, whoopee.
Whoopee.
So no sex for a year.
That's why I got my divorce.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I'm not.
Oh, I'm not sorry for you either. You made out like a bandit.
It's no sex with the person you're married to.
Oh.
not no sex.
Forgive me for having a Rose moment. Did I say something obscene?
Yes, but that's, well, in New York anyway, that's one of the, because,
Stipulations.
like I was told by my lawyer, like when we were splitting up, he was like, well, we need to have, there has to be a grounds for divorce. He's like, just telling your wife you're gay, he says, that's not grounds for divorce.
Well, you also got divorced in what, the 90s?
What it didn't get, no, it was like the 2000s.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, sugar.
Yeah. But, like telling a spouse you're gay, that's not grounds for divorce. At least not in New York.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, wow, I never knew
grounds,
that.
It's not grounds for divorce.
I never knew that.
So, but then we were living apart and everything, and we hadn't shared a marital, as long as you're not sharing a marital bed for, once you're not sharing it for over a year, that's legally grounds for a divorce because you've not shared a marital bed for
a year.
Yeah, I mean, there's other things, but that's generally that's most divorces. That's in New York. That's generally the grounds for divorce is that you just haven't. You
haven't copulated.
But basically living like separate lives.
Yeah.
So
for 1 year.
Yeah, for at least a year. Yes.
I feel like that's something I really should have known.
No.
I'm not married, and I wouldn't know one way or the other.
I don't know. But anyway, that's... and of course, Maude was set in New York.
Yes, Maude was set in Tuckahoe, New York.
So
1 year, and at that point,
then
Maude starts crying, saying, Vivian, get me a Kleenex, because she's obviously not going to be able to have sex with her husband for 1 year.
Right. Doesn't mean you can't have sex.
Doesn't mean you can't have sex.
That's not sex with the person. You're just not allowed to have sex with the person you're married to.
Allow me my one rose moment of the day, thanks.
Only one, dear.
Only. God will get you for that, Tony.
Oh.
It's my first time at the rodeo.
Could have fooled me.
Barbara, please! Please, Barbara. So, Maude's now crying about not being able to have Whoopi
with Walter.
Anymore.
Well, basically anymore.
Yeah. So at this point, Walter and his attorney are walking up the door, and he's saying no bitterness, no rancor.
Right.
So they go. I think they ring the doorbell, and Maude opens the door, saying, "Oh, hello, Walter."
They're like darlings, sweetheart.
Exactly. And they have this moment where Maude says, "You charm the husk right off of the corn," and they both scream at each other, "Mame!" So But Walter and his attorney, whose name is John Vogelson. Played by Gene Blakely. And again, these actors are, I know I've seen them in other sitcoms before.
Definitely. They have those recognizable
They have very recognizable faces.
Yes.
So they walk into the home and, John is saying... What happened? Where am I?
Didn't Maude give them a Mikasa Sukasa moment?
Yes, gave them a Mikasa Sukasa moment, and I think Walter was asking why Vivian was crying.
Right.
And Maude says, "Oh, she was watching a Charlie Brown special. Snoopy dies of terminal hairball
at the end." Right.
And not for anything. Watching any other Charlie Brown special that isn't one of the holiday episodes, they are depressing.
You think?
I
don't remember them being depressing.
I watch them now and I'm like, this is very slice of life. And they're like some of the things that they, not so much that they're going over heavy political topics of conversation, but there's a certain amount of gravitas when you watch these Charlie Brown episodes. I mean, for me at least, I forget which one it was, but I remember the episodes of like Charlie having a crush on the red-haired girl, and I cannot remember for the life of me.
Oh, there was also one. I think it was Snoopy Come Home.
Yeah.
Snoopy found out that because Snoopy originally belonged to a little girl, and he traveled to see her because she was dying. I think. So
again, very
sort of
depressing. Very depressing. I mean,
although when I saw it as a kid, I don't think I really thought of it as depressing.
Yeah,
I guess I didn't fully understand.
You were just entertained by the cartoon.
Yeah,
and then you watch it older, and it's like, oh, this is dark.
Yes, very true. I never really thought about that. So, so John is the family attorney.
Yep.
And he's going to be representing Walter.
Yep.
The old silly Billy.
The old silly Billy.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, Maude,
there was another
Maude moment,
right?
Where Maude says to John, "We'll make the cotton easy to pick." And she turns to Walter, and they both go, "Ma'am." So Maude says, "Oh, this is going to be such fun."
Yes.
And she has this big smile on her face, and then she turns to the audience and just grimaces.
Yes. And John was saying, he was commenting on what beautiful people they are, that, they're,
John was giving them all these compliments, and just Maude and Walter were doing this
Oh no, that's when they're looking at they go and, Maude tells Walter, "Oh, look what I came across," and she's showing him the photo album,
the photograph album,
and they're like, ah,
yeah, they're doing all of these moments. They're having all these moments.
Oh, yeah.
So they find this one picture, and this picture is significant for a couple of reasons. It was the two of us at the Copacabana. I have January 1968, but I don't have the date. I think it was January.
I think it was. I thought they said 68 or 69?
It was it was 1968.
68. And they were drinking pink champagne.
Yep. And listening to Sandler and Young.
Sing, what was it? Make something about making love.
Take me in your arms and never let me go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what song that is.
I don't remember. Yeah. But I remember Maude
says, I never knew I could get so sirred up from two men singing to each other.
Yes.
So at that point, Mason Everhart comes. Well, Walter has this moment where he looks at Maude and says, "I don't think we were ever more in love than at that moment."
Yes. So the doorbell rings. Maude gets it. It's her lawyer, Mason Everhart,
played by Richard Dysart.
Yes. And Mason is commenting how it's been such a long time since he's seen Maude, almost seven years.
Yep. Maude says this one lasted 7 years.
Yes.
And Mason's like, "Oh well, you'll find the love of your life.
You'll find the right man
soon enough someday."
Yes.
And Maude says, "No, I already did find the right man."
Yeah.
And they then have this moment.
Yes.
Oh my God, I wrote that down and I can't tell. Oh yeah, John Vogelson. So the lawyers have this, and I always hated this. I always hated lawyers that showed off their wealth. Because
Maude's attorney Mason, he says, "Oh, Walter, is that your Mercedes parked outside?" And he's like, and Walter's no, and the Walter's attorney John is like, "Oh, that's mine."
Yep.
And so then Mason's got to be like, "Oh, I had to squeeze my Rolls Royce next to you. I hope I didn't squeeze you in too tight."
It's really one of those interesting things because I also go to my doctor's office with, I don't want to say relative frequency, but whenever I go to my dentist, I always see what car he's driving, and I'm like, how lucky thou art.
Yeah.
How lucky thou art. Yeah. So, they're going over the property. Maude is like, "We want to be sensible. Possessions are meaningless. It's gonna be split pretty evenly." And this Maude's going over everything. She's like, "The sideboard. Where's my sideboard?
First she's like, I'm not concerned about possessions. And they're meaningless. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, then she's like. Then she says, after saying how everything is meaningless, we get to the sideboard, and then it's
Yep.
like the sideboard. It's 19th century. It's
J.C. Penney was the what?
something about a first J.C. Penney
It was the
edition
first. It
or
was the
something.
first edition J.C. Penney ever put out.
Right.
So Walter's like, it's okay. You can have the sideboard.
Yes, he tells her anything you want.
Anything you want. Again, being
Right.
very amicable, very
Yes.
cordial with each other.
And Maud's telling him, well, if there's, you should take anything you want. And he's like, oh, there's nothing I want. And they're back and forth. And finally, he says, well, I would like the
A couple of things for my apartment.
Yes. Some, I think there were some wine glasses.
Wine glasses, records.
The Burt Bacharach.
The Burt Bacharach
Burt
records.
Bacharach records.
And magazines.
Yes.
And I can't remember what type of magazines they were. But Maude goes, you want glasses, romantic records, and dirty books.
Yes.
Is that what you want for that rabbit hutch of yours?
Rabbit hutch, yes.
Wally, baby! So, Walter then gets
she makes a comment about it that it's not the Christian Science
the Christian Science reading room. That was so when me and my family lived in our old house in Ronkonkoma, we would always sit around and we would all be on our phones. Mm-hmm. And our neighbor would sometimes come in with either her husband or it was just by herself. And she would look around
Just come in like Arthur and Vivian would?
Sort of. I mean, she would knock on the door and my mother would let her in, obviously. But she would say, what is this, the Christian Science reading room? And it always tickled me.
Oh.
So, yes, Christian Science reading room. Walter's incensed now because he feels like his apartment is being insulted.
Right. So then they start going over current assets.
Yes. How Walter has 75% interest in Finley's Friendly Appliances.
His Buick.
The savings. And Maude stops him and goes...
There was a certain bank. I think he mentioned a certain bank.
Yeah.
And that's when Maude was like, what bank account is that?
And
she's like, I don't know about this bank account.
Could you imagine being able to save as much money as he did in the economy that we live in today?
No.
Neither do I.
No.
So, Walter has this bank account, and
Walter's trying to make
he's trying to make light of it.
It was just some pocket change.
Pocket change, gifts for you,
gifts for her, Maude, and
gifts for Maude,
and then it's like, how much is in it? $8,000.
$8,000, and Maude screams at him, "You have squirreled away $8,000!"
Which I thought was strange because it wasn't that long ago that Walter was having the problems with the business, and he needed
20. Was it 12,000?
I thought it was 13, like 13,000.
13,000,
right? And if he had 8 in this bank account,
well, how long ago was that? Was that last season?
Yeah. I know. It just. I was like, that was something that they
sus
that they didn't really. They
didn't
forgot
really
about.
Either forgot about it or they just didn't pay that much attention to it.
Yeah, they just didn't want. Yeah, it was just something forgotten and tossed away. But anyway, he squirreled away $8,000,
and Maude's like, "Do something legal to him."
Yeah.
So obviously the lawyer's Maude's lawyer has said, "Yup, that's exactly what I'm going to do." And Walter then confronts Maude, saying,
like, "It's just a few $1,000s."
And Walter says to Maude, I know that you have your own savings account."
Mm-hmm.
And, Maude's like, "Oh, it's only a..."
Well, no, it's her real estate money.
Oh, that's right, her real estate money that she made from the job.
And she was saying it's only like,
$1,500.
And Walter's like,
$2,437.
Yeah, meaning he's investigated exactly how much she has.
So Maude turned to him and goes, "You never know a man until you divorce him."
Until you divorce them.
So, I think the lawyers are trying to smooth things out, and it just does not go.
And Maude and Walter start arguing now
over
about
the photo album.
Yes. And it's like, take everything I treasure, take the album. And like you said, they're arguing over that photo album.
Yep. And I think Walter says, I'm getting this thing out of here. And Maude says, if you leave, you'll be walking with a decided limp.
Right.
And
somebody comment. I think Maude comments that we should have done it in the office, because originally she was like, "Oh, it's so nice that we're all so civil and we can do it here at the house and it's nice and cozy."
Yeah,
now
and
it's like we should have done it in the office.
Mason said, "Deal in hard cash," and that was when Maude said, "Oh, shut up, Mason. We should have done this in your crummy, cramped office." And I think it was John who then said, "Oh, Shakespeare said." When something happens, something goes right out the window.
Yes.
And I can't for the life of me remember the damned quote.
But Maude answers back that Shakespeare also said,
kill the lawyers. So,
I think Maude she's yelling something to Walter about his Swiss bank account.
Yep.
And he was sitting on the couch, so she grabs all his clothes out of the closet, and she throws it on top of him. Yes. And then the lawyers are just like, they're just casually like talking to each other, and they're like, why don't we resume this Monday at the office? Yep. And it's like, yes, I think we're making progress. Yeah, everything's okay.
And then they have a conversation about cars, because I think either Mason or John says, how much?
Yeah, what is the mileage on the rolls?
So they exit, and Maude says 10-1. Will Rogers never met a lawyer.
That's right.
So Walter throws all of the clothing off of him, and I think he's had it. The next thing I have written down, and I'm sure there's something that happened between met a lawyer and ugly and divorced. I never would have married you in the first place. What happened?
In between that? Walter, it's you. I can't read my handwriting. But yeah, no. But they're still. I think they take out that one picture, right?
Yes, they take out that one picture, and
the one they were talking about that.
It gets really heated and really ugly between the two of them, and
I think Maude rips it in half.
She rips it in half. She says, "I loathe it. I despise it. I hate this picture."
Yes,
and the only reason I was smiling was I was laughing at Sandler and Young.
She told him, she said, I was not smiling at you.
Yeah, but I was not smiling at you. I was laughing at Sandler and Young. And she tears it up saying, "Take me in your arms and never let me go." And she's cackling and laughing.
Yes.
And Walter, I think, screams at her saying, "Save these for your next marriage."
Right.
And throws the clothes on the floor.
And storms out.
And Maude races after him saying, "You know what you are, Walter? Do you know what you are? Go sit on a snow cone. That's what you are."
And she slams
the door, and she just has this really beaten down, hurt look on her face.
And it ends. She goes over to where that ripped up photo
is, and she's trying to now piece it together, humming "Take Me in Your Arms and Never Let Me Go." It was a really, really somber, sad ending of that episode.
Yes, it was sort of like, ooh.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I don't know about that.
Nope, neither do I.
But they had, this has happened before in Maude, where they've had some of these,
discourse,
these episodes that end like that,
very heavy, heavy,
when
and
Walter hit Maude.
When Walter hit Maude, it was very somber.
It sort of ended like that. I think when Maude had the abortion.
It also ended. I always loved when I sort of have a love-hate relationship with the way that certain episodes end, especially when something really, really, really somber happens and there's no applause, there's no nothing, and it's just silence that goes right to
black.
Right to black. Yeah. I've been watching Mom a lot lately.
Oh, that's that sitcom?
Allison Janney and Anna Faris.
I was in the hospital. That was one of the few things that was came on all the time.
And it was...
I remember watching a couple.
It was one of those shows that I wished I had gotten into when it originally aired. Because it aired from 2013 to 2021. And there are a lot of very obvious similarities between Maude and Mom. Especially with, having two lead female actresses.
Right.
And... I mean, obviously the storyline for Mom is significantly different from Maude, but the way that the sitcom is played out and the way that it's written and the topics that they go over, it's very reminiscent of Maude. Like, these issues that they go over are incredibly heavy-hitting. Like teenage pregnancy, drug use, death by overdose, cancer, dating in the new age. And it's just, it really is a brilliant sitcom. I'm excited to continue watching the rest of it. I'm right now on season 3, but very similar to Maude. And I was actually saying to myself, I never thought Allison Janney would be a good Maude, but she really would be. And I never knew this. Allison Janney is 6 foot.
Oh.
She is 6 foot. And they
drink of water.
They make very funny remarks about her height.
Oh.
And they do it in a way that is respectful of the character. Whereas in Golden Girls, B. Arthur being so tall was a point of contention for her.
Yes.
What else did I want to say? I have a question.
Well, I will have an answer.
What was the roast? What was the roast?
The roast.
What was the roast romantic thing?
The roast romantic thing.
What was the most romantic thing Frank ever did for you?
Most romantic thing.
He's thinking hard on it, folks.
It's not like it's like every day is kind of romantic. I can't say it's like one special thing stands out. It's like, it's like I guess because, he appreciates me every day, so it's like I couldn't say like, oh well, this thing was like the most romantic,
Not even when he proposed?
He didn't propose.
Oh, you proposed.
So that was it really wasn't even a proposal. This is what happened. They legalized gay marriage. And we already felt like we were married at that point.
Because the two of you have been together for 20
yeah, we were
years.
already together for a decade. And I said to him, listen, they've made it legal. Let's just do it, and just get it done so it's legal. And in case anything ever changes, because seeing the way things are now,
going now,
I said if we're grandfathered in, because they can't take it away from you.
They can't tear up the piece of paper.
Yeah, So I said, so we just it was just a very, very, very small. We only had, I think, 3 of our friends with us. It was done at like I had this. I think she was like a Wiccan minister. This lady officiant, and it was at it was right at, where was it? Like the park. It was that park in Babylon. Is it Argyle Park?
Yes.
Yeah,
Argyle Park.
They have like a gazebo there. We just it's just a public thing. We just went there. She did it, and then we went out to dinner with our 3 friends, and it was nothing.
That's pleasant.
It was nothing big. I was like, because it wasn't like, a lot of people. It's like, oh, I want to have a big, huge wedding, and they're focused on like the wedding, where for us it was like, no, we just want that security of the legality of a marriage. And that's like,
I've said to myself a number of times, very similar to that. I don't want a big wedding. I genuinely don't. Despite the fact that I'm Italian, and every Italian wedding that I've gone to has been this really extravagant party.
Yeah, and how many ended up in divorce?
Oh, please. I can name 3 or 4 off the top of my head.
So there you go.
And most of them are family. But that'll be our little secret, kids. Don't tell anybody.
Just between us.
Just between us, girls. So I don't want a big party. It never, especially because it's an investment.
Oh, yeah.
Those parties are insane because you have to pay for the DJ, you have to pay for the lighting, you have to pay for the catering hall.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. And
Tens of thousands of dollars for a party.
Yeah, for a party. And it's like,
if I wanted to do anything, I would host I'd host a costume party. I'd host just a party at a catering hall. Nothing big, nothing fancy. The idea of the idea of a party surrounding the idea of marriage just falls flat on me.
Yeah.
It never meant to me what it has meant to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's how you want to live your life, I am not the judge.
It's everybody's. That's up to everybody. Whatever floats their boat.
The only stipulation would be if I decided to ever make it a big thing, I would obviously have to make Dorothy's wedding dress from the Golden Girls.
My Lord.
That's the only stipulation.
Oh, Lord.
Just to embarrass the hell out of everybody.
Especially me.
Just to embarrass the hell out of everybody. Listen, I have a white gabardine, I have a white lace, all I need is white ribbon, and I can make that dress.
I am so dying to see that dress. Out of all of Dorothy's outfits, I would say that's probably like my most desired one to see you make.
Yeah,
literally.
it's
so
it's literally
iconic.
it's just a sheath dress.
Yeah.
That has a lace design on the top.
And those loops
And those
crazy loops.
those ribbons.
They remind me of like when you were a kid in school and you would make like
crepe paper.
Those loops.
Construction paper loops.
Yeah, like we always did that like around Christmas time. We'd like we'd have like a tree, like a big paper tree on the classroom wall, and we make like those loop kind of things and stick them on. They always reminded me of that.
Isn't that terrible?
I know.
And it's so hideous.
It is.
It's just such a hideous outfit.
I don't know what the thought process was.
Neither do I.
I really don't.
Neither do I. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't like the height of fashion. It was Dorothy in a Dorothy dress.
And what never made sense to me was the episode where Dorothy and Blanche had the same dress, and it was so obviously just a Dorothy dress.
That was so awful.
It was not a dress Blanche would ever wear.
Not in the slightest.
But
even the color didn't look great on her.
No.
That pink salmon did not look great on Rue. It looked gorgeous on B.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was also because she's so tall and she can carry all of that ruching.
I would imagine there was like no way B would have worn a Blanche-style dress, but they were able to get Rue to wear a Dorothy-style dress.
Only during Maude would I ever imagine seeing B in a Rue outfit. That's the only time I would think. Because I think that there was one outfit that Rue wore that was this green velvet vest, but it was a velvet dress vest. That it was sleeveless, and underneath that she wore this powder blue blouse. And I remember distinctly seeing B in something similar to that, where it was a green velvet dress over a powder blue blouse, and she also had on powder blue pants, which, very obvious for her style. She always wore pantsuits.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, so I'm very happy to hear that every day is a paradise with
Frank. Every day.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's a wonderful thing to see in a marriage because it so seldom happens in the gay community.
It really does.
It so seldom happens in the gay world.
I was like the drag brunch I did on Sunday.
Was he there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Because I had to do costume changes, so he always comes with me, and the wig changes and all that. And I was telling the girls, I said, my husband and I said we've been together like 20 years. I was like, that's about 1,000,000 years in gay years, and they were all like, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I said most gay relationships don't last past the first night.
They don't last 1,000,000 years. They last 20 seconds.
Yeah. That long.
Yep. On average. On average. I mean, listen, a friend of mine was in a relationship for 4 months, and the relationship ended, but I'm sure it ended for differentiating reasons.
Of course it did.
But that's between them and the pillows.
Oh, well.
Pity. Anyway, we thank you so much for listening
On that lovely note.
To another episode of God Will Get You for That, Walter. If you would like to follow us, you can on Instagram at Findley's Friendly Appliances, and on YouTube and Facebook at God Will Get You for That, Walter.
Yes.
Where can they find you, Mom?
Everywhere. That's Toni Homeperm.
That's Tony with an I.
Tony with an I. TikTok, Facebook, YouTube,
not Tony
Instagram,
with an S.
You know, especially TikTok. They love
Yes,
me.
they love you on TikTok.
They love me on TikTok.
8,000 followers.
Over 8,000. I never would have thought.
Over
8.
Over 8,000
Over 8,000.
followers.
Excuse me, over 8,000. And I just recently had one of my, little videos go
viral over 100,000.
Oh, it's over 200.
Over 200,000. That's fabulous.
I'm shocked.
I'm not
shocked.
I'm not shocked at all.
But
I'm just a proud daughter. That's all I am.
There you have it. So, and where will they find you?
Isn't it great though, kids, that he has all of these followers,
and that's
all of
showbiz.
All of these
kid.
All of these fans and a drag daughter as well. All that and a drag daughter as well. How do you do it?
I don't. It's I'm just a multitasker.
I'm just thankful that I'm potty trained.
So many facets. Truly. Where can they find you?
You can find me at That Tomcat, and that is where all That Tomcats are found, usually at your local grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, the cat food aisle. I'm right between the Meow Mix and the seafood medley.
Meow, 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 meow.
Fancy Feast. I'm between the Fancy Feast and the Meow Mix.
Salmon flavor?
Yes, salmon flavored.
Or is it turkey and giblets?
It's moose flavored. That's all. It's moose flavored. You can find me That Tomcat on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that fun stuff. And again,
fun.
First of all, it's lovely that we have names that are just names. Mm-hmm. There's no extraneous other names we go by.
Yes, I know.
Just, Business 101, have one name for everything.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to end up making yourself crazy making those business cards.
Yes.
We thank you so much for listening, and you will hear us again next week on another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter. Bye, guys.
Good night.